Well, hi there. This is Suzanne Hannafin, and I am the founder and CEO of Acumen Executive Search. And welcome to another Acumen CEO Insight. We are here today with lovely and truly awesome Laura Salerna Owens, who is not only a good friend of mine, but is the president of Markowitz Herbal Law Firm downtown Portland. So I just wanted to say welcome, Laura, and if you could share us a little bit about yourself and more about Markowitz Herbal.
Sure. Thanks so much, Suzanne. So Markowitz Herbal is a boutique, high-end commercial litigation firm. And a lot of times people say, well, what does that mean? And what that means is if you have any sort of business dispute, and if it's really important to you, you should come to us. So my focus is mainly on employment law, but my partners in my firm, we do all types of business disputes, from small single-owned companies to representing the state of Oregon when they took on Oracle because their software was not working for Cover Oregon, which is, I think, to date, the largest litigation in the state's history. So we do it all. Basically, the way I explain to people is that if it's the fight of your life, then you want to have the right people on your side, and that's us.
That's amazing. And again, I think you talked about this boutique and specialization, which makes this fairly unique through COVID. And I know law firms are like most professional services, that there's this whole idea of this being downtown, this image and being together. So before we jump into that, I guess I should probably ask you pre-COVID, tell me like the size of your firm and give me a little bit more details to that.
Yeah, so we're 65 employees in total, about 30 attorneys. And to your point, Suzanne, we just July of last year moved into this beautiful building in downtown Portland. It truly is beautiful. And it has the outside decks, and we're now on 3 floors. And it very much is, I think, kind of in that traditional model of what you think of this beautiful downtown space, you know, the place that you'd expect the best lawyers in the state to be habitating during the day. I like to call it the Marble Palace, you know. I think we'll talk about this in a moment, but I do think ideas about office space and what things look like might change now that we've all gone through this experience of sheltering in place.
So why don't we just jump right into it, because you guys have really owned this and pivoted. So talk about how did you pivot and how is work today?
Yeah, it was fascinating because you know, I love being a lawyer and I love my profession, but we're not always the most cutting edge on technology. And so let me give a snapshot of 2 aspects of our firm before COVID and how I think those 2 aspects are going to change a lot going forward. So let me start with work in the office and then our marketing efforts. So work in the office, a lot of attorneys would say, I need to have my legal assistant right outside my door. You know, he or she can't even be on a different floor. You know, they need to be right outside my door so that I can, you know, hand them the documents. We have to be able to touch the documents and see them and, you know, have our conversations. And if there's a filing, we all have to be in the office until midnight, all hands on deck. You know, I think that's just a very, almost a dogmatic thing that it would be blasphemy to suggest otherwise. That's just how it has to be. Likewise, in the marketing efforts, at least for my firm, because we're a high-end boutique law firm, it is so relationship-based. And so we're always out there building relationships, and a lot of that is face-to-face events. I mentioned earlier our beautiful decks. We're hosting a lot of events, and in fact, for 2020, we had over 25 events lined up for spring and summer to be hosted at our firm and on our decks. That's just a huge part of our marketing. Or going out to lunch. I mean, I think I was at Nel Centro maybe 3 days every week, you know. I should have had my own booth, you know, I was there so often. And so that was a snapshot of what things were like in March of 2020. Now we sit here in June of 2020, and I can tell you that already those 2 things have changed. So for the filings, we've had a number of filings, big filings, that we've all had to do remotely. We've had some partners appear in court, argue motions, you know, win mini trials. My partner, Harry Wilson, had basically a mini trial, and he happened to be in Massachusetts when it happened, you know, and he was arguing it over Zoom and won. And so I think that the work piece is a really interesting part for us. So I think that will play into, we can talk in a moment about maybe space and what that looks like and how we work. On the marketing piece, that has been really interesting, I think, because how do you go from in-person relationships, seeing folks, to pivoting? And I'm pretty proud of actually how our firm has done. I'll give you two examples. I'll first start just with me personally. A big part of my marketing and what I do is I'm educating the community. So it's educating other lawyers through CLEs, or educating business owners on best practices. And certainly when everything was happening with COVID, there was a huge need for education. People had a lot of questions, but how am I going to get out there? I had never, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, I had never done a webinar in my life as of March 13th, 2020. And as of today, the end of June of 2020, I have now done 16. And in fact, I was just chatting with our marketing director, and on those various webinars, if you add it up, it's over 500 different individuals that we've reached, who attended these programs. And that's been eye-opening for me, because I don't know that I would have necessarily talked to 500 people in 11 weeks otherwise, with my various efforts. And when you're doing a webinar versus if I'm doing something at a stadium in downtown Portland, or auditorium or conference room, you're drawing from more people across the state. And that's been really nice. I know in Portland, we can get a little Portland centric. And so it's been really nice to have that as well. So I think those two pieces of how we work and how we market have been an interesting pivot.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. There was one question I have, and I'm not sure if other people have it, but the courts are still going on and everybody is remote. I did not realize that.
Yeah, and it depends on what type of case you have, because if you have like criminal cases, so I have some friends who are criminal defenders, those are going on and actually in person. And so some of those trials are even being held, I've heard, at like high school gyms, to provide enough spacing for everyone, and it's just so vital to have, you can imagine if you're on trial to be sent away for your life, to have people there in person. On the civil side, the kind of work that we do, the business disputes, a lot of hearings have been going forward, and some of these hearings are like mini trials, because it kind of ends a case right there, like preliminary injunction hearings if people are trying to get a TRO to stop your business from functioning. And those are going forward, and they're going forward by Zoom. So
oh, okay,
yeah.
Zoom even. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then that brings up a question about security, because you hear of the kids, and they've all been on Google and Google Classroom, and people are hacking them, and whether it's other kids are yelling bad profanity or what have you, in their classrooms, but Zoom is not secured. So how are you? I'm shocked by that there's not.
Yeah. Well, Zoom has actually stepped up their game quite a bit, because so one of our clients is the state of Oregon, and they are very serious about their security, obviously, as they have to be. And so initially, when we went to shelter in place, Oregon said, you cannot use Zoom. You have to use Microsoft Teams or, other platforms. And then Zoom has taken a number of steps actually to address those security concerns, such that at least the state of Oregon now has said, okay, we can go back and use Zoom. That was about a month ago. But it's a constantly evolving situation, and that's really interesting to see too, is how are people reacting, how are these companies reacting to these security concerns. And one of the things I think is the most interesting about innovation is the idea of yes and, right? Versus, nope, there's a problem there, we're done. That kills innovation. Innovation is, yes, there's a security issue, and what can we do to resolve that, or how do we work around that, so that we can get to a place where we can not let perfect or be the enemy of good. Yeah, and we can move along.
So again, most law firms, what I understand, not being a lawyer, is that you still paper files, and then you pass one file to one lawyer who looks at it, to one assistant. And so how are you maneuvering that day-to-day just information flow?
Well, luckily about 5 years ago, we went paperless. And so what's been really interesting is that some of the things that my firm did in response to being a leader for women litigators has actually been great for us in COVID. So let me give you some examples.
Yeah.
My firm was founded in 1983 by a woman because she was told by another large firm in town that juries didn't want to see women in the courtroom. So she was like, okay, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so she founded our firm. So from day one, our firm has had an approach of how can we be flexible and how can we have a wraparound approach to our employees, and particularly trying to retain women so they can be trial lawyers. And so that has led to a number of things of people having history of working remotely, and even getting to the point where about maybe 6 years ago, we started a new position called staff attorney. So we had some attorneys who were working primarily from home. So we had all these attorneys who had a full setup in their house. I mean, they literally, from my office, I can dial a three number extension and it rings to a phone in their house. And so we had all that infrastructure in place for about half of our attorneys at the beginning of 2020. And a large part of that was to help retain working mothers. And then COVID hits, and within 3 days, we were able to get our entire office online, which was amazing.
What an IT feat. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we have an amazing IT team. I mean, I really have to give it up to them. They did an incredible job. And the head of our IT department, our IT director, used to work for the federal courts before he came to us. And so has a very sophisticated understanding of security issues. And we've been really lucky to have him.
Wow. Again, talk about a pivot. So, before we go on of the future, you mentioned real estate. Let's talk about that because, I love your place downtown. I have sat on those decks. I've enjoyed great wine there. But, do you see, as Multnomah County just opened last week, are you guys going back? I mean, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so we're planning on opening, the soonest we could open is July 13th, because, the county has been open for 3 weeks. So we'll see how the numbers are going, but we are planning on opening then. But it will be a gradual opening. And to your answer about real estate, it's a question mark. We're discussing it, but I will tell you that right now we have 3 floors, and everybody has their own personal office or their own personal space. And what's been really interesting is as we've surveyed our workplace about people's comfort level in returning, a number of people said that they would like to continue to work remotely, and not necessarily because of health reasons. I mean, some certainly were concerned about coming back in. They might have an underlying condition or, other reasons, but a number of people like working from home, which of course, for the record, I am not in that group. I have 2 young children at home. I cannot wait to get back to the Marble Palace. But, and so that's been really eye-opening too, I think. So definitely remains to be seen. I will not take a definitive position here because although I am the president, I have all my equity partners and we make decision by consensus. But at least from my perspective, I would not be surprised if we were to consolidate our space, because I don't think every single person is going to be in the office at the same time every single day. And that's a real change, because just a year ago, a big reason for our move, we used to have the top 2 floors at Pac West, was that we wanted more space. And at Pac West, we only had the top 2 floors and there was not another one available. So we moved to this brand new building to have the 3rd floor. And it's interesting how in just a year, there could be a 180 to actually wanting to consolidate space.
So right now, I can see the beauty of everybody having their own office and their own space for cleaning reasons, because not more people going through it. But your new model talks more about a job share or a space share space. Then you're having to deal with cleaning. So to me, this new normal is still being written. What's your take on that?
It absolutely is still being written. But what I will say is that if you're only looking at it only from a cost standpoint, it's a lot more cost effective to do a deep clean every night than it is to have the premium space downtown of a whole other floor. And also the other thing I would say is it wouldn't necessarily be a daily thing, because some business owners I know have been doing kind of an interesting concept of like a team A and team B. And so, team A is in the office Monday through Thursday of the first week. everybody works remotely on Friday. They bring in a company who does a deep clean on Friday. And then next week, team B is in the office Monday to Thursday. Everyone works remotely Friday, deep clean. So if you're doing it that way, where you actually are only doing a deep clean once a week, it could be very cost effective.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what other changes do you see, Markwitz Herbal's new normal going to look like?
I think that some of our marketing will change as well. Even as we're opening up, not everyone has the same comfort level of getting together. So I think you need to be a little more nimble about that. And so, I'm very lucky in that I have amazing friends like you and other folks. And so I reached out to my friend Allison Sokol-Blosser, who's the co-president of Sokol-Blosser Winery. And she was kind enough to host a virtual wine tasting for, friends and clients of the firm. And that was a lot of fun, and so I think it's being creative about having a hybrid approach, about how you're going to do your marketing or how you're going to have your client meetings. Because even when we're open, not everyone's going to feel the same comfort level getting together. And I always think that the most important part as a lawyer or customer service is thinking of the comfort of the other person. And so if you have more tools in your toolbox to make the other side feel comfortable, that's going to make you so much stronger in the market.
So, to kind of close up your learnings and what the key things that you'd like to share with others, because I think that what we've talked about today crosses law firms. I mean, it's for all professional services. But what other things have been truly your big aha moments?
The big aha moment has been for me that there is no such thing as an absolute truth. Because for years, we have told ourselves, lawyers, there's no way to do this job completely remotely. You would have to have people, you just have to. You can't do it otherwise. And then suddenly we had to, and we're still doing it. We're still having the hearings, and we're still filing cases, and we're still meeting with clients, and we're still marketing. And that's been really instructive for me, that going forward, as one of the leaders of my firm, when we're having these conversations and we get the sort of, that's not possible, I think we can all look back to 2020 and say, is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is amazing. And then how did your last question, I promise, Laura, how did your law firm fare during this time? Because you said business kind of kept going.
Yeah. So
crazy.
Knock on wood, I have to find some wood to knock on. Knock on wood, we have stayed really busy. And what's been great about it is, on the one hand, we had a great pipeline, and so that always helps. We had a nice pipeline of work. We have fantastic clients. And particularly with this new world that businesses are navigating, more than ever, they need help. And they need help from people they trust. And one thing that COVID has done in some ways is level the playing field, because nobody has dealt with a global pandemic of this scale. I was joking with my partner, Dave Markowitz, who's one of the founding partners of the firm. And I was saying to him, Dave, we're doing depositions and we've never done it in a global pandemic. And he's like, well, when I did it during the Spanish flu, the point being that not even Dave Markowitz, has done this. So on the one hand, there's the great leveler, but on the other hand, there's something to be said for firms that have handled unique situations, and that's always our firm. I mean, people, I always joke, they don't come for us for the easy cases, They come when they have a novel issue. And that's our wheelhouse. I mean, that is where we shine and thrive, is when it's a novel issue that no one's seen before. And we've dealt with it with other crises, and so we're well equipped to deal with it now. And I think because people know that about us in the market, we've been getting a lot of calls from businesses on how to navigate this new normal.
Yeah, this has been fabulous. I cannot thank you enough, Laura. Not only are you a dear, dear friend of mine, but you are a wonderful person. And to take your knowledge, to share it on webinars, to really look forward and to adjust. I tell you, a lot of attorneys I know are, tend to be a little bit more rigid. So I think it's pretty fabulous. And I think you're pretty fabulous too. So.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. I always say game, recognize game, and you're looking real familiar. So no, but thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. And also, I just want to say, I've been so impressed how Acumen has pivoted. You know, when I am talking to people about businesses in the market that have really thrived and done well, I use you as an example. So I think your leadership has been really inspired, and I just appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. We could probably go on for another 10 minutes of our love fest, but I promised you would get off by a certain time for your next call. So thank you so much, Laura. I do appreciate it. And you guys, oh, really fast, I'm going to give you Laura's contact information. Truly anything, anything that you have, reach out to her. She's there for you. Thank you.
Thank you.